Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Nate Eaton. Today is April the 28th, day 18 of the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. It was a short day, but there was a lot packed into just a few hours. I'm telling you, we had 10 witnesses on the stand. We had 3 911 calls. The discussion was about Tammy Daybell's death, the pink foam found in her mouth, how Chad was acting when the police showed up and when the coroner showed up. We had the coroner on the stand. This was a Fremont County day, that is for sure. We also learned that Tammy was enrolled in a clogging class and that she was actively going to fitness class, high fitness and Zumba, that she was in very good health when she passed away, by all accounts, and that some of the things Chad told police didn't quite add up. We're going to go through all of that tonight here on Courtroom Insider. We have a special guest. She's in the green room getting ready. Erica Eaton, my wife, was in court today. First time she's ever come with me to work, like at a trial. And she's going to give her take just as a citizen who came to see the process. Some of my colleagues joined me today. Peggy Jepson was there, our comment moderator who helps go through all of our questions, along with her husband, Glenn. And it was, as I said, it was a fast and furious court day, and we need to get to it. Again, let me know where you're watching from. Welcome to all of you on YouTube, on East Idaho News, on Facebook. And if you have questions, please submit them because I'll try to answer as many as I can. I know some of you that actually come to the courthouse for the first time or every day come up and we chat afterwards just about what happened. And it was an eventful day. So let me go through these 10 witnesses because they were flying today. The first one we had up was Samantha Gawilliam, Tammy's sister. She began testifying last night, and then she finished up her testimony today, and she got right in the car and she went back to Springville, Utah, because she's a theater teacher, and it was opening night last night and for her play. She made it in time. I just found out. So they're at the auditorium right now. So she testified in the case of her dead sister who was allegedly murdered, and then she went to direct the high school play. We had Deputy Coulter Cannon of the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. He's the officer or the deputy that took the call the night that Tammy Daybell said there was a gunman in her driveway. He shared what happened that night. We had dispatcher Helena Kaakamunu, I think so. She was the dispatcher the night those 911 calls came in when Tammy was shot at. We're going to play the calls here in just a minute. We had another dispatcher, Christina West, who was working the morning Tammy died. They played the 911 call that came in that day. You can hear Chad crying. We'll play that in just a minute. Officer Alyssa Greenhall, she responded the morning Tammy Daybell died. She went to the house. She talked about how Chad was acting. She talked about how Garth Daybell, Chad's son, was acting. Garth was not there today, but we'll talk about her. Here were the other 5 witnesses. The deputy coroner, Cammie Wilmore, she responded to Chad's house the morning Tammy died, and she was there first before the actual coroner, who you see next on the list, Brenda Dye, an elected position. Brenda had only been in the position a few months, less than a year, when she was called out to that death. Cammie went first because Cammie lived closer, and Brenda had called Cammie and said, get over there as quick as you can, and then Brenda showed up. And we learned a lot about the circumstances that morning, about Tammy's body, pink foam coming out of her mouth. How did a dead body fall out of the bed? A lot of questions. Spencer Cook was the next person on the stand. He works for the Sugar Salem School District, where Tammy was employed, and he discussed her emails. Remember that email that Charles Vallow sent her saying, your husband and my wife are having an affair. I hate to break the news to you. He explained that he had evidence and he wanted to talk to her. We learned what happened to that email and what happened to Charles's email address. Something we didn't know before today. Kelsey Harris took the stand. She is a clogging instructor, and Tammy was enrolled in her class. And she also, I believe, works at the school. Sorry, not Kelsey. The next one, Shanna Miller does. Kelsey does work at the school. My wife's here correcting me, which I need a lot of. And Shanna Miller, she works at the school as well and attended fitness classes with Tammy, right? Like a few weeks before she died. not meditation classes, but like high energy fitness classes. So we got a lot to go through tonight, and then we're going to have Erica pop on. Okay, let me show you the sketches from today. This is Tammy's sister on the stand. Beautiful photo of Tammy that they had up on the screen behind her during the testimony, and Samantha did get emotional at times, and we captured that. And then here are the other 9 witnesses that were on the stand today. Their names are written in small print. You can kind of read them if you do a close-up. Some of them were on the stand for maybe 5-10 minutes, others on a little bit longer. And then here we have Lori. And those 2 men in the back are the bailiffs that sit behind her the entire time. Now, Lori turns her back to the crowd anytime the attorneys go into a sidebar conference, which is when they meet together with the judge and they turn on white noise in the courtroom. That's kind of her position. She turns, she doodles, she writes, she takes notes. She does not engage much with people in the gallery. I have seen her be very friendly. One day, one of the attorney's wife came and watched and was sitting in front of me, and Lori turned around and said hi and smiled, and it was very friendly. So that's kind of the look we get from Lori when the attorneys go into a crossbar or a sidebar session. Okay, let's get right to it, right to the witnesses. Number 1, Samantha Gwilliam. Just posted her audio, by the way, on our YouTube channel. And if you missed it yesterday, you can go back and listen to part 1. She was on for about 50 minutes this morning. She talked about how much Tammy loved students. She taught in Springville, Utah. And then when they moved to Rexburg, she also taught. She talked about how Tammy was not sick. Tammy was sick years before she died with depression and had mentioned this to Samantha. But Samantha said they had the type of relationship that if Tammy was sick, she would have said something. She was feeling sick or down, that she would have said something. She never did. In fact, 2 weeks before she died, she showed up at the house and she was just fine. She talked about how she was training to run a small race, a 5K, and everything was great. I want to read you part of the testimony that Samantha said this morning. This was at 8:44. Let me find it here. Tammy learned Chad was remarried 1 month to the day of Tammy's passing. Quote, "You don't get married 4 weeks after you just buried your wife of almost 30 years. You just don't do that." Samantha says they then learned that Chad actually remarried 2 weeks after Tammy's death. "And we were devastated," she said. Chad told Samantha that his new wife's name was Lori Ryan, and her previous husband had a heart attack. Quote, "They were both grieving the passing of spouses. As any good sister did, I went to the internet to see who this woman was. I discovered Lori's name was tied to Vallow, and it brought up newspaper articles about a man in Arizona who'd been shot in his own home by his brother-in-law. I took that to my husband and said, I took that to my husband and said, I think this is the same woman who he married. He did not die of a heart attack." Samantha did her own little investigation. And then when, actually, I don't think that came in as testimony, so I better not say it. I had heard something else about the timeline. I'm not going to go there yet, maybe another day. But there was more to the story about Chad and how often he was communicating with Tammy's sister Samantha and her husband Jason. Jason and Chad were very close. They worked together. They were together all the time. I mean, when they lived in Utah, they lived right around the corner from each other. So if anyone would know, it would be Samantha. So after the prosecution finished their questions, Jim Archibald, Lori's attorney, stood up and had some questions for Samantha. He talked about how her obituary, which we'll look at later on tonight, said that she died of natural causes. And Jim asked who wrote the obituary. And Samantha said, I did, with consultation from the family, and we were going based off of what Chad told us. And now we know she didn't die of natural causes. He asked her about Chad making money off of spiritual experiences. By writing these books about near-death experiences, he was going around the country selling these books, making money. He asked about how Chad was very aware of funerals and burials. He worked as the sexton in the Springville, Utah cemetery. He knew how to bury bodies. He was over the cemetery, so he'd helped loved ones bury their bodies. And Jim asked about that. But this part that stuck out to me, and I think most people in the courtroom, is at the end of his cross-examination, Jim Archibald said, I'm sorry that you lost your sister. And then he went and sat down. So it was, and Samantha said, thank you for that. So it was a moment of compassion there from the defense. As Samantha left the courtroom, Larry and Kay were on the edge of their bench. And I think Larry kind of leaned over and grabbed her, and she gave them each a hug. And then she walked out of the courtroom with her husband. So that's the end of Samantha's testimony. Again, you can listen to that if you want on the East Idaho News YouTube channel. Next, we had Fremont County Sheriff Deputy Coulter Cannon. His testimony was relatively short. He was working the night of October 9th. That's the night that Tammy Daybell said that there was someone that pulled up with a gun in the driveway. He was dispatched out to the house. He got there. He did a search of the driveway. He couldn't find any shells. He spoke with Tammy. He didn't speak with Chad, but he spoke with Tammy. He said that Garth was there, their son, and Tammy mentioned to him that she thought it might be one of her sons because the person was the same build of one of her sons. She didn't say which one, but the deputy said that upon looking further, the build may have been the same, but the measurements weren't quite the same as one of her sons. So that didn't quite work out. He couldn't find any shell casings. I don't know how long he was there, but it was relatively short. I think they chalked it up to, a teenager causing trouble, and then he left. That was about his testimony. Next, we had the dispatcher, Helena Kaakamunu. I'm sorry, Helena, if I'm saying your name wrong and you're watching. She took the 911 call that night. There were actually two 911 calls. Tammy called 911, but before she called 911, Joseph Murray, her son-in-law across the street, was chopping wood. He heard Tammy scream. He called 911, and then after that, Tammy called 911. And here are the calls. The first one is Joseph. The second one is Tammy. Again, this is the night of October 9th. She came home from the grocery store. It was around 9 o'clock at night. It was dark in the fall. So October, in the fall, she gets out of the car, and there's a man standing there with a gun. And these are the 911 calls.
Mother-in-law had just got home about 10 minutes ago, was unloading her car, and she thinks the man, but she's not 100% sure she didn't see because they were wearing a ski mask, came up to her with a paintball gun, but they started shooting at her. It wasn't loaded, so she couldn't, they came out of it. But she kept asking him what he was doing. He would respond, and then suddenly, after she pulled out her husband's hair, he ran off.
Okay, what's the address? Are you there? Hello? Are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you. What's the address?
It's 199 North, 1900 East, Rexbury, Idaho, 83440. That's my address. She lives in the corner. I don't know what her address is.
Okay, I need her address. What's her location?
I think it's 201, I think is her address.
201 North 1900 East?
North, yep.
Does she know which direction he ended up running?
He headed east, back behind their house.
Okay, and did she give you a description of the clothing?
I didn't get one from her. I just only got,
and what is your name?
my name is Joseph Murray.
Okay, is this a good good phone number for you?
Yep.
Okay, I am sending a deputy out to your mother's home.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
October 9, 2019. 21 hours, 49 minutes, 20 seconds.
Fremont County Sheriff's Office.
Hi, I need to report something.
Okay, go ahead. What's the address?
Okay, At 202 North, 1900 East. The corner with the blinking yellow light on Salem Highway.
Is it a suspicious person?
Yes.
Okay, what was he wearing?
He was all dressed in black and he had a ski mask on.
And he said the blinking light now is where you saw him?
No, he's gone now because I pulled up into our driveway and I didn't step out of the back seat of my car and suddenly he was there and he had a paintball gun and he was shooting and like he was going to shoot at me. And I kept asking him what he was doing because I could tell it was a paintball thing. Okay. And then he just kept doing it, so I yelled for my husband, and then he took off running around the back of my house.
Okay, give me just 1 minute. Stay on the line with me.
Okay.
October 9, 2019. 21 hours, 50 minutes, 28 seconds.
That was North 1900 East?
Yes.
October 9, 2019. 21 hours, 50 minutes, 43 seconds.
Do you know what direction he was going?
He went behind my house and it's so dark out here and I just went in the house and got my husband and son and then they went out and looked and he was long gone by then. So he was on the north side of my house is where he went to get away.
Okay.
He didn't say anything or he just kept like he was holding the gun like he was, had a rifle and just shooting at me, so. But nothing came out of the gun either, so I don't think it was loaded.
Okay, and what is your name, ma'am?
My name is Tammy Daybell.
Okay, I will pass your information on to my deputies. We actually just had a previous call about this individual, so they're out in the area looking now.
Okay, yeah, I think it was my son-in-law who lives diagonal from us that called you guys already.
Oh,
so we
okay.
just wanted to make sure it got reported. So.
Let's see. And what's your son-in-law's name?
Joseph Murray.
Okay, yep, it was him.
Okay.
So, all right, I have a deputy that will be out at your home here shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And that's the call. Those are the calls. So many questions I know many of you have. Did Chad help Alex escape? Because police have now said it was Alex that had that gun out the back. Of course, I don't know the answer to that. There's so many what ifs in your head. What if the shooting would have worked? Why did it backfire? If he was that close to her in the driveway, what happened to the gun? You would think it would be a fairly easy shot right there, 5 feet away or 10 feet away. And then he got spooked and took off. So it's quite some interesting calls. And the fact she then went on to Facebook, which is how we at East Idaho News learned about this situation months later, because Salem, that area, if you've been there, it's very rural, and to have a gunman coming through is quite interesting. But we at East Idaho News learned about it because someone sent us the Facebook post she made warning her neighbors, hey, something weird just happened. This is what happened. So we heard that call. And again, the deputy went out. He didn't find any paint splatter anywhere. If it had been a paintball gun, Tammy didn't have paint on her. There was no bullet holes in the car, nothing like that. And then 10 days later, Tammy dies. And that's where the next witness came into call. This was the dispatcher working the morning of October 19th. Her name is Christina West. And let me play you the 911 call that was made that morning that kicked off this began the whole series of events as far as Tammy is concerned. Just to give you some context, this is October 19th. Charles Vallow died July 11th. July, August, September. So this is 3 months later. JJ died September 22nd, 23rd. So a month after that. Tylee died September 8th or 9th. So we got the death in August or July, then September, now we're in October. Fourth death here, Tammy Daybell. This is the 911 call. Her son Garth is on the line, and you will also hear Chad on the line.
911, where's your emergency?
We're at 202 North, 1900 East.
What's going on?
We just found my mom. She's on the ground frozen, or she's stiff, and I don't know.
Are you in Madison County or Fremont County?
I'm Chad, the husband. She's clearly dead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, are you in Rexburg or... Because your address shows a Rexburg address, but you're in Fremont County?
Mile past.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Okay, can I get your name?
Chad Daybell. Oh, man.
Okay, Chad, I'm going to get somebody up to you right now, okay?
Yeah, the corner where the blinking yellow light is, the red house.
Yes, sir. Red house on the corner.
Yes.
Blinking yellow light.
Right.
Okay. We'll get somebody out to you, okay? I'm so sorry.
Okay.
If you need anything else, you call me back, okay?
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, so that was the call. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of that call? A couple things stuck out. He said she's frozen, she's cold. He takes the phone, obviously, from his son. And how the testimony was set up today is you had the dispatcher. Well, first of all, you had Tammy's sister. Talk about Tammy. What a great person she was. Boom, right to the deputy who showed up for the shooting on the 9th. Boom, right to the dispatcher who took the call for the shooting on the 9th. Then we go to the dispatcher who took the call for the 19th. Now we go to the officer or the deputy who arrived on the 19th. First deputy on the scene. Her name is Alyssa Greenhalgh. She now works for the Rexburg Police Department. She said it was a call of an unattended death. An unattended death is anybody who dies basically out of the presence of a doctor or a medical professional. You die at your house, it's an unattended death. Normally the coroner will come if you're old or you have cancer, or I'm being very generic here, by the way. There probably are some exceptions, but you die at your house, coroner comes. If it's suspicious, if it was me or it was my wife, we're young and healthy, they would probably do an autopsy because it's unexpected. But if it's a 95-year-old person who, falls down the stairs and dies, not so much. So but that's not this deputy's job. This deputy's job is to get there, and if there is something suspicious, she needs to secure the scene. She got there and said there was nothing suspicious. Chad was very upset. His son was very upset. His son, Garth, didn't say much. Chad said that his wife slept with her legs, one of her legs out of the bed, maybe both legs, because she was going through menopause and was having hot flashes. But then somehow her legs got caught in the sheets and she fell out of bed after she died. But before that, he said she woke up around midnight, coughing, big coughing fit. He helped her. She went to the bathroom. She threw up. And Chad told the officer that Garth saw her throw up, and so did Chad. This was around midnight. She then went back to bed and fell asleep. And he told this version of events to the deputy, to the assistant coroner, the deputy coroner, and the actual coroner. So I might be mixing and matching who said what, but this is the basic overall story that came out today. So her legs and feet, even though she slept with her legs out of the sheets, they got caught in the sheets, he said, and then her body was on the ground. And then Chad heard her fall out in around 5:45 in the morning, 5:40. Yelled for Garth. Garth came in, picked the body up, put it back on the bed. 911 call was made at 6. So there's about a 20-minute period there. At no time did Chad ask for emergency response, emergency services to try to revive her. Although by that time, all of the witnesses said she was cold to the touch. She had, is it lividity? Lividity had set in on her back, which is where the blood pools kind of at the lowest place of your body. So it set in there. Rigor mortis was kind of starting to set in. Her body was stiff and cold. So the other thing is she had pink foam, or as the coroner called it, pink bloody sputum out of her mouth. And then they showed the images to the court. Now, remember the other day, we did not see the really graphic images of JJ. They turned all the monitors around so we couldn't see. We saw the images of Tammy. And it started with a wide shot of the bedroom, and you could kind of see Tammy on the bed, and then a close-up of her under the covers, and then a very close shot of her face with the pink foam substance that was there. And then we saw her with the blanket off, lying on the bed. So the deputy was waiting for the coroner to show up, and the deputy noticed she did have a bruise on her arm. She didn't know how fresh the bruise was, but she, talked with the Chad and what happened, and Chad said she had been sick. She hadn't been feeling well. She had been having some fainting spells. He told one of the deputies or the coroner that they had been at the temple a few weeks earlier, and when Tammy stood up, she passed out and fainted there in the temple. Now, side note, if that had happened, I can pretty much assure you that she would have told her sister, Samantha. That's a pretty big event. If you're inside the temple and you pass out in front of everybody, you're going to tell somebody, I would think. Samantha had never heard that before. So the coroner shows up. First of all, the assistant coroner, or the deputy coroner, because the coroner was called out, but because the deputy lived closer to Chad's house, she said, I'll go over first and then I'll meet you there. Now, both the coroner and the deputy have had years of EMS experience, but as I mentioned, the coroner had been on the job for less than a year, and it is an elected position. In Idaho, I could run for coroner this election and be elected, even though I have zero training. Anybody can be the coroner. Now, Miss Dye, Brenda Dye, said that she went to some trainings and some classes, and she had obviously been an EMT for quite some time. But her name is Cammie Wilmore. She's the deputy coroner. She says she gets there first. Chad is distressed. He's distraught. Again, he mentioned that she was going through menopause. She had one leg outside of the sheet. She noticed the odd foam on Tammy's mouth. The bruises didn't look new. She asked about medicines Tammy was on, and he had said that she was on tramadol, which had been given to her, but she couldn't find any bottle in the house for tramadol. There were a lot of bottles of natural remedies and vitamins, but nothing else. And so Tammy, again, was 49 and young grandma, and Chad, of course, was distressed. Well, then Brenda Dye shows up. And when Brenda Dye shows up, again, she's the county coroner. So everything that Miss Wilmore happened with Cammie Wilmore, she now defers to her boss, basically. Chad tells Brenda Dye the same thing. She fell out of bed. But now he starts to mention that she's had some seizures in the past, lately. That she refused to go to the doctor. She hated to go to the doctor. That Garth saw her vomit when she woke up around midnight after her coughing fit. That she did faint at the temple. And the coroner said that Chad did not want an autopsy. And the coroner said, well, that's ultimately our call. And Emma, Chad's daughter, really did not want an autopsy and insisted that an autopsy not be done on her mom. So after consulting with the detective and her assistant, the deputy, Brenda coroner ruled that Tammy died of natural causes, but there's the cause of death and the means of death. But that it was a pulmonary embolism, I believe. I wrote it down in the story. Edema? Pulmonary edema. I'm sorry. Again, Eric is here helping me out. So she's buried Tuesday. She died Saturday, was buried Tuesday. Was buried so quick that family members, some of them, could not attend the funeral. And I know a lot of people watching are like, well, that's not too quick. I mean, I've spoken with people, but generally in the LDS faith, a funeral is kind of a big thing. Family members come from all over, and generally they're held like on a Friday or a Saturday, maybe a Thursday. If someone dies on a Saturday, it would not be unrealistic to have the funeral the following Thursday or Friday. And Chad wanted her buried in Springville. And Samantha asked Chad, why do you want her buried in Springville? You live in Rexburg, the Rexburg area, with all of your kids. Don't you want to go see her gravestone? And he said, well, Rexburg's under snow and ice most of the year, and I thought it might be nice for you guys to keep an eye on her. And Samantha thought that was nice that her sister was being buried there, but would you not want your spouse close? And it was rushed super fast. So Brenda Dye, again, testifies about this pink foam. She had been called out to 5 to 6 deaths before this, none of them with asphyxia. And with this particular one, but she had in her EMT career, not as the coroner, she said she had responded to deaths where there was pink foam. And there was a towel in the bedroom on the floor that she picked up to try to wipe some of the foam off, and Chad had used that towel to do the same thing, to wipe the pink foam off. I meant to do some research before I came on about this pink foam to figure out what exactly it means, but I'm assuming if there's blood in it and you're asphyxiated, strangled or whatever, that it comes up. And that's what happened. But still, she ruled the death natural. And then when the exhumation happened in December, the medical examiner in Utah ruled that she died of asphyxiation. We know that JJ died of asphyxiation with the plastic bag, but we have not heard if they knew exactly what killed Tammy. We know, how she died. We don't know the specifics. Was it a pillow? Was it another plastic bag? Was it somebody's hands? But these 3 witnesses testified she did have a bruise on her upper arm. So was she held down? They didn't get that specific, but there was a bruise there. So that's what happened with the coroner. After that, we had Spencer Cook testify, very short. He's the IT guy for the Sugar-Salem School District, and he said that he was asked to pull Tammy's emails from the week of June 29th, 2019. You might recall that is when Charles Vallow sent Tammy an email saying, your husband, my wife are having an affair. Charles then died like 11 days later. So he was able to pull her email. He said the emails are stored in 2 places. One, in the receiver's box, and then the district has a backup server or system where all of the emails are stored and only certain people have access to those, Spencer Cook being one of them. He went in, he was able to go into Tammy Daybell's email account, and it showed that she had received that email and it was in the deleted box. But she had one blocked email address on her blocked sender list and receiver list, and it was Charles Vallow. We have not heard that before. So who put Charles Vallow on the blocked list? Was it her? Did Chad somehow get into her email and block the emails from Charles? Because remember, Charles told Lori, I'm going to contact Chad and I'm going to contact Tammy. And Lori said, she won't listen to you. She's my friend. I'm sure Lori then told Chad, Charles is going to email her. So did Chad somehow get into her email and block it? We don't know. They didn't address that. But it's fascinating. Or, there's the chance that Tammy gets this email out of the blue and she's like, who is this? This guy's weird. But one would think you'd have to stop. I mean, am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong. One would think you'd stop and think about it. If I got an email like that knew names, and it wasn't like a junk email, but it knew names, I might say something. I don't know if I'd block it, but I don't know. Again, his testimony was short. We're going to post all these witness testimonies on our YouTube channel, but I just put up the entire audio from today. I think it's about 3.5 hours, 4 hours. You can go listen to it. The next 2 witnesses were kind of interesting. It was at the end of the day. The first one was Kelsey Harris. And Kelsey is a clogging teacher. And Tammy was involved in clogging with her in her class up until the week she died. And Spencer Rammel, the deputy prosecuting attorney, asked Kelsey. So are we talking like river dance or singing in the rain type clogging? And she said river dance type clogging. You know, river dance, it's fast. You're on your feet. It's a workout. Tammy was enrolled in that. So all of this talk that she wasn't healthy, she was feeling weak, she was fainting, did not match up with the fact that she was enrolled in a pretty extensive clogging class. Not only that, but Miss Harris knew that had gone with Tammy once to a high fitness class, which is a lot of jumping jacks, cardio work, your heart's beating, and there were no issues. And that led into the final witness of today, Shanna Miller, who was a coworker of Tammy and also went to a fitness class. She said when Tammy got hired by the district, she started going to a fitness class like every week with her daughter Emma. And again, it was Zumba, which is a high aerobic class. It was something that Tammy loved to do. She loved getting into the fitness routine and doing stuff like that. What was interesting is Miss Miller said that it really bothered her that there was no funeral or memorial planned for Tammy in Sugar City, in Rexburg. There was the one in Springville, Utah, but nothing in Sugar City, where she taught, where they lived in Rexburg. And so the principal, she said, organized a memorial for her in the area. So it was interesting. A lot of people might think, well, what does that matter having these two people that knew she went to a fitness class? Again, it's like a huge puzzle. And every day the prosecutor's putting these pieces bit by bit by bit to paint the whole picture. Sometimes you might have a piece down here when nothing's surrounding it. And you're like, why did they do that? Or some days they might build a bunch around the piece. Today was one of those days where it was like, oh, we're building a bunch around Tammy. Today is Tammy's day. And then they've done JJ, they've done Tylee. They're kind of bouncing around to hopefully their goal is at the end of all this, the picture is complete for the jury to say, oh, wow, this is what happened. If it's not complete and there's still a bunch of pieces missing, then the defense has done its job. So that's what happened today. I do want to, today, before Erica's here, she's ready to come in and give her thoughts. And I want to pull this up because it was mentioned today, Tammy's obituary. And I thought it's a beautifully written obituary. I don't know if you've read it, but I thought that we would pull it up and remember Tammy tonight. I'm going to make this big. It says she passed away peacefully in her sleep in Salem on the 19th of October, 2019. She was born in Pasadena, California. She grew up in South Pasadena and Anaheim with her Cooper cousins and living close to Disneyland. She and all her siblings were chartered members of the mentally gifted students at Cerritos Elementary School, enabling her to develop creative thinking skills she used through the rest of her life. She loved putting on family shows that she produced and directed, corralling any family members she could. It was a happy childhood with many memories, including trips to the beach, camping at Elfin Forest, and Calico Ghost Town. When Tammy was 13, she moved with her family to Springville. She was an excellent student and played the drums and clarinet in the Springville High School band. She was the yearbook editor her senior year. Most of all, she was known for her friendly smile and kindness to everyone. Tammy shared a love of books and reading with her family. She created her own library, lending books to her siblings with actual library cards and fines when they weren't returned on time. She loved classical musical movies and learned the songs and words. Then she and her siblings would reenact them. Hilarious. During the summer following the freshman year at BYU, she met Chad Daybell. They quickly fell in love and were married on March 9th, 1990 in the Manti Temple. While Chad continued his schooling, Tammy supported the family by working as the secretary for the Springville's Park Department. As part of her job, she typed thousands of handwritten burial records into a computer database. This helped spark her interest in family history, which later became her favorite hobby. Throughout her life, she submitted more than 100,000 names for temple ordinance work. She even managed to teach her computer-challenged mother to learn and join in the gathering of family history, a miracle. Chad graduated, took a job in Ogden, Utah. Tammy became a full-time homemaker and mother as their family began to grow. She loved her children deeply and encouraged them in countless ways. She often took the children to the public library and helped them develop a passion for reading. The family returned to Springville, where Tammy later became the computer teacher at Art City Elementary. Tammy was a computer genius who had a talent for graphic arts. In 2004, she and Chad founded the Spring Creek Book Company. Tammy wore many hats as their company grew, juggling her role as chief financial officer with designing book covers. She was the true backbone of the company. She was proud of the dozens of books the company published over the years. 2015, the family moved to Salem. She became the assistant librarian at Madison Middle School and later became the librarian at Central Elementary School. She was treasured and loved by the staff and students alike. She served in numerous capacities in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, including as Stakes Girls Camp Director and as Young Women's President. She also served in Relief Society and primary presidencies. She loved the women and girls she was privileged to serve with. Tammy's true focus throughout her life was her family, from serving a delicious dinner each Sunday to remembering every birthday and holiday with gifts. She also loved all sorts of animals, but especially loved Indian runner ducks. She also raised pigeons, chickens, cats, and rabbits, knowing each one by name. She loved gardening, cooking, and playing games with her family. Her laugh will be remembered and cherished. And then it says who she is survived by and when funeral services will be held. And then how there was the funeral in Springville and then a memorial the next day on the 23rd of October at the Henry Fork Stake Center. So this is Tammy Daybell. This is the woman who was the discussion today at the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell. And she is missed, and we honor her. Okay, I'm here with Erica. Let's move this camera, honey. So we'll zoom it out. Whoop! Sorry, we don't have a cameraman here. It's us.
Okay.
So let's get this light on you, too. There we go. Anybody have questions for Erica? You can see the light. We'll bring that down a little. So what did you think? First day coming to court.
It was interesting. It was a lot more technical than I thought it would be. Yeah, it was interesting to see. I think one of the main things I wanted to see in court was just Lori's face, her reaction during the day. Do you want me to go into that?
Yes, because I know so many of you asked me that, so now you can hear it from Erica.
So now I know, because when he says it, I'm like, yeah, but what does she really look like? But to me, she looks disinterested. She looks bored. Like I saw her writing in her little notebook today, and she's just kind of like looking around, almost like I would do when I was sitting in a really boring meeting for a long time, just looking for something to amuse her. And she chit-chats with John and Jim and just, I was a little off put by how if I was on trial for someone's murder, I would be paying a lot more attention if I was not guilty.
It's almost as if, like, if she had a phone, I hate to say this, but, she had a cell phone, she'd be scrolling.
Yeah.
Like, just, oh, something's happening here.
And I think I just didn't, you have said that I felt like she was very aloof, and I think that you say that all the time, but just seeing it was different for me.
Describe the process because so many people say, I want to come and get a ticket. I want to get in the courtroom. Describe how that all worked, just like the
Well, I will
schedule.
say, if you want to get a ticket the night before, so I was clicking on the wrong date. So here's a little tip for you if you are coming. Do not click on the day's date. You need to click on the next day when you're having court. So like today, you would have needed to scroll to the month of May for May 1st. So I was trying to get a ticket and was on the wrong one. Luckily, they have duplicates that happen. So if you check back at 8:30, you may be able to get a ticket, which is what happened for me. What else? The process of getting into court.
Talk about that.
So you show your email, you show your ID, and the little ticket that says that you're in. You tell them what number you are in the ticket line, and then they hand you a colored ticket that you then have to show if you leave the courtroom to come back in. So not too hard, and you have to go through security, so you have to put all your person belongings, take off your belts, not shoes. It's not the airport. It's pretty easy though, but
fairly easy, and everyone's very nice. Everyone's polite in the courtroom, and once you're in your seat for the day, that's the seat you have. I just counted, so we ended yesterday with 37 witnesses with Samantha Gwilliam, and we had 10 today minus her, so I already counted her. So we're up to 46 witnesses. And we've been there 4 weeks. The first week was jury selection, so if you throw that out, we've had 3 weeks of testimony, and we've had, again, 46 witnesses. So I think the prosecution might go one more week, maybe two, but one. And then the defense, they could go as long as they want. But Jim Archibald has said they have very few, if any, witnesses. But if Lori takes the stand, that could go on for 2 or 3 days.
yeah.
And They have not said if she will. And I don't know if they've made that decision. I'm sure every day they talk with her about that, and they weigh the pros and the cons of putting her on the stand. She may want to tell her story, but remember, she's also got to face a prosecutor who can cross-examine everything she says, and we don't know how that'll come across to a jury. Your thoughts overall on the jury?
The jury, everyone seemed to be paying attention. There was one juror that I thought was very hyper-focused. She would look back and forth, kind of whatever. There's one that was a little yawny in the back.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
Yeah.
It's been a long week. And I will say, I was only there today was a short day. We got out, at 1?
1 o'clock,
maybe? Yeah. And I felt tired. You sit on this wooden bench the entire time. And it's just draining to hear these emotional things from people. It's easy to look at this when you're looking at crime podcasts or other things as an objective outsider and not get attached to it. But when you're seeing that these are people in your community, I think this is your next door neighbor that you're talking about. And we had Nate's moderator sitting next to us today in court, and she knows all of these people. They are her neighbors. And so to see people she knows on the stand, it just has such a different feel, and that's really emotionally, physically draining to hear all of this.
Yeah.
I would say.
Absolutely. And everybody says that will never happen to me. Every person I've ever interviewed in 17 years, victims of homicide or car crash or drowning or tragedy, every single one says, I never thought it would happen to me.
And my thoughts were, so I have a little shout out to my workout ladies that I work out with many mornings.
Yeah.
I just thought how bizarre it would be to come into a courtroom. I mean, I thought, what if one of them had to testify in a case? I don't think Nate will ever murder me. I'm pretty solid on that. He likes me, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
But just to be in the jury, no one ever thinks that you would ever be in that position. And so to have to go through that, I'm sure they'd have to tell a lot of people, stop talking over the judge. You need to make sure that they finish their complete sentence for the court record, things like that. I feel like I would be a nervous wreck up there in the first place. And just, unless you're a litigator, I don't feel like people really know the court process.
Yeah, if you've never been in a courtroom, it can be so intimidating. And not only that, the accused is sitting right there. And I noticed that Lori looked at Samantha a few times. I don't think Samantha looked at her once. I mean, maybe once or twice, but you're looking straight ahead at the person who's questioning you, not necessarily at the defendant. But there are things like even, you stand when the judge comes in, they say, all rise, then you sit, then you stand when the jury comes in, you sit. There was one day a woman next to me said, and if you're watching, it was great sitting next to you, there was a break, a sidebar, which is, a conference where the attorneys get together with the judge off to the side of the courtroom and they play white noise so you can't overhear what they're saying.
And when he says white noise, it sounds like the TV when it's not like, on a channel.
Yeah.
Very annoying.
So during that, you're allowed to stand up and stretch your legs. And a lot of the jurors did that particular day, and I did, and so did people. And so this woman stood up, and after 2 or 3 minutes, she leans over and whispers, so why are we standing? And I said, oh, it's just to stretch our legs. You don't have to stand. She didn't know, though, because she'd never been in a courtroom, and you're standing and you're sitting and you're standing, and there's sidebars and objections and overrulings. And so there's a lot that you over time, it makes sense. You get it. And as the witness, I can't imagine being a witness in a stand. And knowing that you're going to get, quote unquote, friendly questions from the prosecution if you're their witness. But when the defense comes up, you don't know what they're going to ask you. And they could try to question your character and everything. Anything else you noticed about today that you want to say?
I will say, because I know this is a burning thought in all of your minds, I did make eye contact with Lori.
Oh, and how was that?
Just weird. I just feel like I don't mean this in a rude way, just like no one's home. I mean, I looked at her, she looked back at me. There was no facial expression. She was talking to John Thomas as she was looking back there. And so I just locked eyes with her and I just didn't look away. I didn't give her dagger eyes. I didn't smile. I just looked her way and she just looked at me, but there was no response really.
Yeah. She's very careful to not look at the spectators in the room. Yeah. I mean, she walks in and sits down. We did see her take a drink of Coke today.
Yeah.
After. And she's quite healthy. And somebody asked, why doesn't she ever drink Coke? Because her attorneys will have a Coke Zero or something on the thing. And you can't have soda in jail unless you get it from the commissary. But she had a swig of, I think, all natural Coca-Cola.
No, it wasn't.
Was it Coke
normal?
Zero?
It was normal Coke.
Normal
It was
Coke.
just a normal
I say
bottle
all
of Coke.
natural.
All natural.
I don't
There's
know if
nothing
there's
natural about Coke,
And
guys.
that's
I'm
why
sorry.
it's so good. All right, we have anything that you wanted to add about any
I
other
don't think
observations?
so. There was a lot of really interesting things today.
Yeah. It was a good day
Nate
to
was
come.
excited to be out a little early, I think, because he's done this for days and days and days. For me, I kind of wanted it to go until 3 because today it was very interesting, the process. And I wanted to say, with like the technicalities, there is a lot in the court of state your name, do this, and that process takes so long. So I think when you talked about putting puzzle pieces together for it, like for me, I'm like, where are they going with this? A lot of the times during the questioning, I'm like, I'm not sure what direction this is taking yet based on the questions they're asking. And then at the end of their testimony, by then you can kind of see the pathway that they're trying to move along in the story, I would say.
But sometimes, because of what we've reported on and what we know, you're thinking, oh, here it goes. It's going to be big. They're going to say this. And then they don't. And they let the witness go. There were so many questions that I'm like, why didn't they ask about this or that? And maybe that comes later, or maybe there's so much here in this case. They're trying to just keep it as simple as they can to prove the point without it. Now, they can bring up anything they want in their closing argument. But, for instance, they have not shown police interrogation videos. Somebody asked, did they show your video of me confronting Lori and Chad in Hawaii? They have not. They haven't shown any videos. They've played 911 calls and they've shown photos, but no videos. So, again, I don't know if that's deliberate. A lot of times the police interrogation tapes, they'll actually bring the witness in and get them to testify on. So, yeah, it's kind of been interesting, and you know, the verdict could come and we could be like, they never even brought this part up, and maybe they bring it up at Chad's trial. I don't know. By the way, there's a hearing for Chad on the 4th, Tammy's birthday, Wednesday at 3:45. So right when Lori's ends, there's a hearing for Chad. I'll be there covering it. I'll let you know what happens, and we'll go from there.
When you say you'll be there, you mean East Idaho News will be there? You'll be in
No, I'll be there because it's in Boise.
Oh, it's in Boise.
The hearing's
See?
in Boise.
What do I know?
Chad will appear via not FaceTime, Zoom, and yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course
Can
you
I lean
can.
into this? So something I was thinking about today as I was sitting observing, I thought, you know, the jury has to be impartial. And obviously I have heard a lot about this case in the past few years. So I obviously have preconceived notions about what I think has occurred, or based on my knowledge of whatever. We all have something that we think. But I really had to think today as I was sitting there about the jury being impartial. Do they have enough to convict her on murder charges for Tammy and for the kids and as conspiracy? And I would be interested to hear and look in the comments later and see what you guys think about that. That is without a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, that's the big
Would
question.
you be
beyond
able
a
to
reasonable
convict that? I know that there are a lot of things that point towards guilt, but without a reasonable doubt, I'm not sure. Weigh in the comments.
That's got to be the thing. Yeah, let us know, but only if you've listened to all of the testimony and been to court every day.
Well, you can just listening to the audio. I feel like you could
absolutely.
Get it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, if you listen
don't
to
have
the
to
audio,
be at the courthouse,
you get it.
but
That gets it. All right, you want to read some questions?
Let's do it. All right.
And still post your questions below wherever you're watching.
Why did Chad ask Tammy to go see her family? Remind me of the timeline, please.
Okay, so Chad in late September, I believe, of 2019, came into Tammy and said, I have a feeling you need to go see your family by yourself in Utah. It was unusual for that to happen. They always went as a family together. And Chad really insisted you need to go see your family. So Tammy got in the car, drove to Utah by herself, got there on a Friday night, spent the night with her sister, their sister's house. They hung out, and then she drove back the next day.
Am I incorrect? Somewhere did I read that Chad had told Lori that he thought that she would die in a car accident?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yep. So that was probably tying into it. she didn't die in the car crash, obviously, and then the things took off from there. Samantha went into more about an unusual visit from Chad and Tammy in July of 2019, where Chad didn't even get out of the car. They showed up unexpectedly at the door. Tammy gave her birthday present, and Chad waited in the car. Very unusual for them to do that, show up unannounced and not even have Chad come in. Of course, July, that's around the time Charles was killed. It may have even been that day, around that time. So you can listen to that testimony if you want to hear more.
And Samantha did say that they were friends, right? That her husband, they were friends with Chad. It wasn't like
they had a
some
great
in-laws you
relationship.
get along better with than others.
No, they had a great
Love
relationship.
all of mine. Let's see. I'm not sure what this means exactly, but what about the scratch on the neck? I don't remember if it was Chad or Alex the night that Melanie and her boyfriend were at Lori's, probably the night JJ died. Now we know JJ had marks under his fingernails. Do you recall this info?
I believe Chad had a scratch on his neck. I would need to look up the stuff. There's so much, but we do know that JJ had signs on his fingernails that there may have been a struggle, and I know they took all of his fingernails to test for DNA, and they haven't said whose DNA was found under the nails yet, if they were able to collect any. So that could determine who he scratched. I'm pretty sure it was Chad. Yes, it was Chad, because he took JJ upstairs when JJ was throwing a fit and came down, and David or Melanie, who was staying with Lori, said they noticed a scratch on Chad's neck, and Chad said that JJ had done that to him. And that was the weekend right before JJ died.
Carlene, if Lori is found guilty, do you think Chad will try and take a plea deal and plead guilty if they take death penalty off the table?
Very, very well could happen. I think that the prosecution might be open to that. If Lori's found guilty and they win the case and she goes away for life, they could say, all right, we'll take death off the table. But I think one of the conditions would be that he would have to admit that he killed Tammy. I think that is what the prosecution would want, and probably what Tammy's family would want. So if he's not willing to do that, I think they say we go all the way to trial. The prosecution doesn't have anything to lose, especially if they win this case. If they lose the case, that's another matter. But if they win this, they can be like, we've done it. Okay, we'll go 2 for 2. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And then Chad's got to face everything that Lori's faced the past month.
Did Lori pay Alex, hence the bag of money Zulema got when Alex died? Which, I asked Nate about this last night. I don't know. Do police confiscate that money?
Oh, it's probably being held
what
as
gets
evidence.
Confiscated as evidence? I just was curious.
Yeah, they probably have that as evidence, police in Arizona. I don't know if Lori paid Alex. We know that Alex took out a loan for $21,000 before he died. That money could have been part of the loan, because I don't see Lori giving him that massive amount of cash when they were trying to get cash, it seemed. Was that the end of the question?
Yes, that was it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Caitlin asks, why did they take Melanie's DNA?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. It may have been because Melanie stayed in Tylee's room the night, that weekend, or just to rule it out, another female that had close contact with Lori. They never really got into that. I did find that was interesting. Again, it could be potentially because maybe what if Tylee died in that house in Rexburg, and Melanie was the only one that had visited the home, and her DNA was in there. But that's just me speculating. I don't know.
Do you know if Chad and Lori go to church services while in jail?
I don't know if they go. I do know that church services are offered for many denominations, meaning pastors or bishops or religious leaders will come in. Chad has been excommunicated from the LDS church. I've seen the excommunication letter. It happened, 2 years ago probably now. He's still welcome to go to church in the jail, but I don't think he could he can't take like the sacrament, the bread and the water that's passed, like communion. So I don't know about Lori. I have no idea.
Did Alex have pink foam in his mouth like Tammy? I think Zulema's son reported that when he called 911. I have no idea if that's true or not. If so, how can they say Chad and Lori didn't kill him too?
I don't recall hearing pink foam about Alex, but there was, sorry to be graphic, a bunch of feces in the bathroom. He was found in the bathroom. I don't recall any pink foam on him.
Can we sidebar about the pink foam? There's been a lot of comments that I was reading during this broadcast about the pink foam. So someone did answer that question. They looked it up.
What'd they say?
When you have pulmonary edema and it causes carbon dioxide, all these gases, so you can get pink sputum, foam. They call it a foam cone. Like if you have a child that has passed away with SIDS, things like that, they can have foam that comes out of their nose, eyes, or mouth. It's just one of those things.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that. And thank you for asking. This is the first thing that popped up from medical news today. When the heart and lungs are not working properly, fluid builds up around both organs and cells are starved of oxygen. Carbon dioxide and other gases also build up around cells and mix with the fluid, forming a frothy, light pink or blood-tinted mucus.
And I will say, not to be graphic and gross, I don't know if you want me to say this, but the pictures of Tammy, it did look more like blood to me out of the side of her mouth.
Another website says what causes expelling of pink foam from mouth at death? There might be violent coughing and the small vessels might rupture. This action causes foaming, which is mixed with blood and gives a pink tinge. Okay, again, this is just from the internet, so please don't take us. We're not giving medical advice. I did wonder that, though. It apparently is more common than maybe we thought, and sometimes it can even happen with drug overdose, because foaming at the mouth, organs like the heart and lungs can't function, so slow heart or lung movements cause fluids to gather. So maybe it wasn't that startling. Like if we walked in and saw, oh my gosh, pink foam, it's poison, which I think was a lot of the thought early on when this came out. But sounds like it wasn't. I'm
sorry. I was talking during his broadcast in the comments to many of you.
Oh.
However, did you mention that they said that Garth and Chad were both in the bathroom as Tammy was throwing up the night before she died?
I mentioned that they both said they witnessed it, yeah.
I thought that was very interesting.
From the way I heard that, Chad told the deputy, both Garth and I saw her throwing up. I don't know if he said that in the presence of Garth. Like,
sure.
Did he make that up? Surely Garth would say, no, I didn't. Or maybe Garth said, maybe I did. Or maybe it really happened. I don't know.
But y'all, if you're in the bathroom, whose son is coming in? I mean, I have little kids, so they're probably busting in on me if I'm ill. But I would not be in the bathroom with my mother at this point while she's throwing. That just seems really odd to me, right? I mean, if you're sick, I don't know that you need an entourage of people while you're Ralphing. I'm sorry. Next question. Amy, any surveillance from stores where plastic was purchased?
Not that we've seen, but we do know that Alex did visit Walmart and Sportsman's Warehouse. And I think Cabela's. Maybe not Cabela's.
Do you think Chad and Lori have fingerprints there, or were they smart enough to have Alex do this?
Well, based on the testimony yesterday, we have not heard anything about we have not heard anything about Chad and Lori's fingerprints yet. There could still be more testimony coming, but so far the only prints they were able to obtain was one print from a little finger and one print from the palm of Alex's right hand.
All right, I'm going to hand this back to him and see if there's any other ones that he wants to...
Did they blackmail Alex? I have no idea. Did your other sketch artist quit? I see different renderings. No, she didn't. She's still there, so Lisa's there. But another woman named Susan showed up just on her own dime from Dallas, I think, and sketches on an iPad. Maybe New York. I think through Dallas or LA. She's not local. Lisa's local, has been in there every day. She's the commissioned artist by the media. So she's getting paid. But Susan showed up, and I have to show you because she's done a great job. Both of the artists are so talented, and they've done they had different styles. And so Susan Bin, follow her on Twitter, and she might be watching. I'll show you this. This was on my Twitter. Whoops, wrong button. She did this sketch of me and Justin Lum from Fox 10. We've been on the story from the beginning. Look at my square jaw. I wish my jaw was that square, chiseled. And there's Justin.
So handsome you are.
And then she drew the other sketch artist. So Lisa, my partner in crime law. And that's Lisa sketching. And then Susan, you can find her on Twitter at Bont Mercy. She posts all of her images here. So again, it's a different style. There's one of the... This is what I want to show you. I tweeted this the other day. Remember the other day you asked how the courtroom is set out? Well, this is it. It's probably hard to read, especially if you're on a phone. But if you go to my Twitter feed or my Facebook, everybody's labeled. Like there's John Thomas, Jim Archibald, Lori. This is how everybody sits. This is a compressed version. It is more spread out than this. But, oh yeah, you can kind of see my mouse.
And I will say, so from that, you can't see how people are seated in the courtroom. So where Nate is sitting every day, if you backed up probably 50 steps from John Thomas, Nate would be sitting there. And there are 2 empty benches in front of him where the defense could sit if Lori had family, etc. But there was one person sitting there today, and that was it.
And notice Lori sits here, boom, directly across from the jury. But, again, this is more spread out. This looks like it's much closer than it really is. There's the court reporter. Prosecutors sit here. There is far more room. There's the judge's door, projector, all that. So yes. So we have 2 sketch artists in there. I don't know if Susan will be back next week. I think she's going home. I think she just came for the week. And honestly, anybody could come and start drawing as long as you're not causing a disturbance. I could start doodling on my computer or paper and put it out. I mean, it's not restricted.
But Nate's would look like stick figures.
They would look awful.
They're not. It would.
Pat asks if Lori is on suicide watch. I don't think so. I think she's in isolation, though, at the jail. A lot of people are saying there's no smoking gun and that there can't be a conviction. What are your personal thoughts? I'm not going to share my personal thoughts, but I'll tell you that a lot of cases you don't need a smoking gun. If the case is well presented and the witnesses do their job and the evidence is there and there's not some one big boom, that's it, there can be convictions. I've seen it a lot.
And Nate and I spoke about that because just evidence, etc. And I guess you explained to me in closing arguments is really where they tie it all up with a pretty little package. And that's where you really put all of these puzzle pieces together in a nice summary, right? Yeah. And that's where people really are like, yes or no.
What do people remember about OJ, that 9-month trial? His attorney saying, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. And it was the glove they had him try on that did not fit his hand. Major thing. They said that in closing. That's one of the things they'll always remember. So the closing arguments can have a big impact. Last question from Sharon. Okay, we talked about that Garth. I don't know about Garth. I believe he was on the witness list and no longer is and will not be coming out. But he could be here next week. I'm not saying he's not. Wasn't something said about beliefs regarding binding and fire? Help me, where did I hear this? Zulema Pastenas talked about that when they would do these casting outs, that part of the ceremony to get rid of the evil spirit was you would bind the spirit, set fire to the spirit around the body, and then cast the spirit out and then seal it so that the evil spirit could not come back. Again, this was all spiritually, metaphorically speaking, but it's kind of ironic that JJ was bound and Tylee was burned, and that they said they both had evil spirits. So there we go. All right. Anything else? We got it all. We went a little over an hour. Thank you for paying attention. Here's where you can find us. Me.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah.
I will be honest. I would not be on Facebook. I probably would be nowhere if Nate didn't have the job he did, but...
Yes, so if you send her a friend request, she's not going to accept you unless she knows you in person. No, I'm just being honest, okay?
That's very true.
But here you can find me. I'm happy to be your friend. And there you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. That's a lot of fun family stuff. And the East Idaho News YouTube. If you really want to get into it, you can go to the Meetin' the Eatons YouTube channel, which I know many of you are watching on because it's exploded over the past month. That's our family YouTube channel. We have some funny, silly stuff on there. And then some work stuff. And then our daughter's 7 Questions with Emmy. We will take tomorrow night off. Yay.
And you won't be, are you on back on Sunday?
I think I'll come back. Should I do one Sunday? I think I'll do one Sunday because I'll be here. Eric is sticking in town for the weekend. There's a media dinner tomorrow that we're going to head to here in Boise, the Press Club. And I think that we'll preview the week come Sunday night at 7:30. So tune in. And then Monday, we're back at day 19. All right. Thank you for watching. Good having you here. Have a great weekend.
Have a good night.
Bye.